Well, this was just brought a bunch of stuff, and we just put together this little display of various things out of my life. This is probably the earliest example of a drawing that I did when I was probably 4 or 5. It's of a train. Early stuff. These are some of the photographs. I used to work from Polaroids, and of course that's the painting that's Mojo's. That's in the other room, painted from that. If you're, I had a magnifying glass. Drawings that I'd work from. And this is just a palette that I picked off of my, I had a pad of palette paper, and before the show opened, I just peeled this off and grabbed some of my paints. And I really do use pretty much what you see here, not much in the way of variety of paint, just your basic primary colors, and burnt sienna is important, black and white. And you can see how, how do you describe this? It's not a planned palette. It's like I squeeze things out and I mix paints on the palette, which by the time the palette's filled up, you're looking at basically a lot of grays, really a lot of earth colors. Sky there, down here is greens and browns and blacks. And then some of my brushes and a little cup for my medium, which is just a linseed oil turpentine mix. It's a sensual thing, memory. Having a memory can be like a sensual experience. And of course, I had my daily sandwich of hamburger and french fries here when I was selling watercolors on the street in Provincetown. Oh my goodness, look what I did. Yeah. There's this little guy right here. Oh my God. Yeah. See that little guy there? I know exactly where that came from. This painting here, although it was done in 1976, it's very much about the time in 1969 when I came to the Cape, in between my sophomore and junior year, and got a job washing dishes at the Richmond Harbor Club. About midway through the summer, I hitchhiked out to Provincetown and looked around, and I met a guy who is French-Canadian who came down for the summers, and he hung his very, very quick, simple watercolors on a fence right on Commercial Street. We got to talking, and I think I might have brought a portfolio down. He says, well, why don't you join me here? You can have this part of the fence, and I'll have this part of the fence, and we just have to settle that my price scale is from $5 to $15 for watercolor, and you will be the $15 to $30 range, so we don't compete with each other. So I did more involved watercolors with pen and ink, and it was a scary moment because I was quitting my job, which I needed to make money. My parents would not have been happy knowing that I quit my job and moved to Provincetown, but I did it. I got a cheap room, place I used to eat, sort of on the corner from where the watercolors are hung. And that was quite a summer because before I moved to Provincetown, watched the first moon landing. This is 1969. It's one of those hallmark summers. And just parenthetically, a month into my time in Provincetown, once again I hitchhiked to meet a friend in Boston, and we drove out to Woodstock. So that's the summer of '69. I experienced it to the hilt, and within a week I'd made pretty much what I would have made if I'd stayed another month or two washing dishes. So it was like, this is really great, I'm in Provincetown. This is 1969. It was crazy out there then. I remember going back to my little room, and I had like a stack of $20 bills and traveler's checks, and just going, whoa, this is great. It's interesting to look at a painting. I think it's been 20 years since I saw this. Of course, this is when I was very much influenced by Gregory Gillespie. So you have this, it's realism, but it's also surrealism. Yeah, so you got these sort of random shapes in here, and these random shapes just sprinkled around the painting. interesting stuff going on here. These are among the earliest paintings. I'd only been painting a few years when I did these. As I'm drawing before I started to paint, I believe. Just looking in the mirror. And then I decided to do a self-portrait. When I first started to paint, I was very influenced by Gregory Gillespie, who's gone now, but he became a good friend and a mentor. And it's so funny because I saw his work while I was in college. I was a printmaking major in college, but I saw his work down in New York at a show, a group show at the Hirshhorn. No, not the Hirshhorn, the Whitney Museum. Anyway, then when I started to paint, I remembered him. I went down to New York, went to his gallery and saw his paintings, and I went, wow, this guy is great. I came back, and within a few weeks, somebody found me and said, Greg Gillespie's having a show at Smith College. And I said, what? What's he doing here? And they said, he just moved here. So ultimately, I got to know him pretty well. And, you know, this grouping here, these two are very much affected by him. He's very much the surreal combined with the real. So this is, I remember, this is actually two sources. This face, I think I did from a photograph, and I think this part of it was sort of more made up, although the shirt had to be from a photograph too, but there's actually a kind of strange feeling as if the head, I didn't intend this, but afterwards I realized the head looks like it's not my real head, but that I'm holding a mask up in front of my real face. So you could read it that way, and very, very much at this time I was learning how to paint, you know, so experimenting, honing my craft, trying out new things, ultimately ending up, you know, with the more finished work and the finished artist. This is one of the very first large paintings I did. It's ambitious, and I guess at this particular time in my artistic life, I was ready to do a big painting. So this is my bedroom. This is my bachelor bedroom. I think I was in my late 20s here. And there's all the signs of it being a bachelor bedroom. You know, the crap, all the crappy stuff, you know. this thing down here. And this miserable spider plant, this old TV, and of course this empty bottle of Harvey's Bristol cream, you know, which is my drink at the time, and sip. And this quilt here was made for me by my girlfriend, and my kind of ex-girlfriend. We were sort of off and on, but I was crazy about her, and I think we hadn't seen each other for a while. I think she made this for me and sent it to me while I was in residence at the McDowell Colony. So I got this big box, and I opened it up. Oh, that's nice. We're still friends. But this is all like about being single, not being attached, so to speak, not happy with that. You know, these years were not my happy years. But I look at this and I just go, okay, this is in Northampton. It's a very depressing time of the year. Nothing there except gray. Gray heater, gray TV, gray, everything gray. It's the bright spot. Well, there is something about us. It becomes more and more acute as I get older, and that is the abundance of memory. Going back so many decades, but even on a short term, you know, an event that might have taken place in the morning, and now it's a memory, is just as significant as, say, the memory of something that happened 50 years ago. Memory is a very interesting subject. This painting here I haven't seen in at least 30 years. I did it, and I sold it right away, I think, to Fidelity Management. So it's been in Boston, in their, you know, headquarters there somewhere. And this is another painting where I just sort of astounded myself looking at it again, and all this detail, over the top detail in this painting. It's a very busy painting. And it's not something I would do now. I would seek a more placid subject, or make it placid. This is all about, kind of autumn, busy foliage, outrageous complexity of foliage and colors, and this painting almost needs this as a counterbalance to all of the nature remnants of humanity, just edifices, left behind things. What's the meaning behind all of that? Well, in some ways it's very superficial, in that it could be in this painting a balance to the composition. But then you could go a little deeper and think, well, this is a substitute for humankind and its place in nature, but it's absent. A lot of Edward Hopper's paintings had certain combinations of people and nature where, they often use the term alienation. His paintings were about alienation, people alienated by, in the cities or in the country, and I can relate to that. I think a lot of what I do is intuitive. In other words, there isn't conscious thinking, like I'm going to do this to suggest that. Especially when you've been doing something for as long as I have been. It's just kind of goes from, a vision without any words or even conscious thought into the painting. And it's very gratifying to sometimes start a painting in the morning and have it done by the end of the day. That doesn't happen with a painting like this. There's a kind of arc of, going uphill, and then you've reached a certain point, which is like, now it's downhill. And then the last few days are great, because you're coming into the finishing line, so to speak, and you just feel good. It's very emotional, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just first impression is. And sometimes I remember when I came here, after the show was hung, and I got to see Nanny and Rose over there, and a few of these paintings, and I went up and I looked, and I kind of went, did I really paint that? You could break this down into multiple paintings. Well, this is one of many paintings that I did at this community garden. It's in Northampton, and not far from where I lived. And especially in the autumn, I would get up before sunrise and go up here. And oftentimes it was surrounded by fog, just fog. You couldn't see beyond a certain point. And then as the sun rose, the fog burned off, and it was like more and more was revealed. It's a big space. You can see there's still fog here. And sometimes the effect of the fog burning off and then the sun coming through would be as real as what we're seeing here, which is You have some clear sky here, blue, clear sky. A little more here, but then you have the sun doing its thing through fog, and it's sort of, I don't, of course I took a lot of photographs and then I changed them quite a bit, so this is literally just not real. It feels real, but technically it isn't real. For one thing, this is a combination of many photographs that I'd cut and paste in the computer on in Photoshop. And compose the painting from all these different elements. So you have a lot of natural stuff, foliage, flowers, but interspersed through here are all these aspects of the gardener in a person, the human effect on nature. It starts right here. There's this trellis and this little bench, and you have poles for growing things on. You got this arch, which has some I can't remember what it's called, but it's grows during the summer and then flowers late in the fall. And then you have this funny little part. This really is, in some ways, the center of the painting. And it's funny. It's meant to be funny. Like a boot, upside down on a pole. Where's the other boot? What's it doing there? What's this? A little bit of, hose, another stick, or sticks, and then you have these long poles that were stuck in the ground, and these runner beams, I think it's what they're called. And then this chair, more poles. So it's a comment on what we do with nature, in nature and with nature. It's the garden. It's a garden. A garden is a human invention. This is an ultimate garden. It's not a formal garden the way, castles, estates. The French would do very, very formal gardens. The British did too, but gardening in this country has been very, very much grew out of the sort of egalitarian aspect of this country. So the garden's been a metaphor ever since Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like the ending of Voltaire's Candide, where it's all this crap happens through his life, all this awful humankind, submitting these characters to all the indignities that humankind can do. And in the end, he just threw off this one statement. He says, "Oh, let us go tend our garden." That's how the Candide ended. Let us just take care of our garden. That's the best we can do right now. I love that. I remember spending a summer in Italy and coming back, and we'd rented a place in Truro. One of my favorite bike rides is a back road. I think it's called Old County Road or County Road between Wellfleet and Truro. It's just through the dunes, It's just, I'm thinking, I'm riding this road. I'm thinking, this Italy doesn't have anything on this particular spot that I'm in on Cape Cod. Well, light is transitory, especially those moments of light that most people remark about: sunrise, sunset, a storm, certain effects in the atmospheres. You look at it and you go, okay, that's incredible, but in a few minutes, seconds even, it's going to be gone. So that is transitory nature, and it's about the transitory nature of things in the landscape. in the atmosphere, our lives on this earth. You can make it a big metaphor, but light is, to me, something that's, ever since I realized that was a big part of Edward Hopper's paintings. That was his subject as much as anything. I remember I saw a show of his down in New York, a retrospective, just hitting me. Okay, light, 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 light. And so the difference between, like, this earlier painting has no light in it. This one does. So there's, in between that painting and this one, I discovered light. And I'd say most of the paintings here were done after that time, which would have been probably late 70s, early 80s. So yeah, this whole wall here of Cape paintings is, each one of them, some more so than others, is about light. It's not just natural light too, it's the contrast between natural light and artificial light. There too. Even if there aren't people in the paintings, you know that someone's in there. There's someone in there. I think New England is special because of the seasons, because of the cycle. You know, I spent a lot of time in California, and I love the weather there, but it doesn't change. You know, England, you know, very distinct seasons. And in some ways, there's more than 4 seasons. My father-in-law used to say there's 6 seasons, and he had a definite definition for each one. Was, you know, in between spring and winter, there was a season. In between summer and fall, there was a season. There are all these different seasons, but whatever the definition is, they have very distinct seasons. You could be, you know, in a winter's day where the temperature is you know, below 0, and you know that in a half a year you'll be, you know, temperatures near 100. It's, I don't know many places in the world that have that kind of extreme, and all the things in between. So I think that a lot of painters in New England, not just me, but going through history, and think of Edward Hopper and Winslow Homer, George Inness, all the Hudson River School painters, Edward Hopper, George Bellows. Seasons, a big part of their work. And, people's connection to the seasons, people's connection to their landscape.